What if the one person who truly saw you wasn't supposed to? I never expected to feel anything again. Not here, not like this. While my husband drifted further into silence and absence, someone else noticed me. Someone who shouldn't have. It started with a glance, a gentle compliment, and suddenly the walls I'd built around my heart began to crack. This is a story about loneliness, awakening, and a moment that changed everything. I crossed a line I can never uncross, but for the first time in years, I felt alive. If you've ever felt invisible in your own home or longed for a touch that reminded you still exist, this story is for you. Stay with me to the end, because what happened next was something I never saw coming. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more true stories that hit where it hurts and where it heals. Welcome to my channel. I never imagined my life would come to this. A woman in her mid-40s standing alone in a beautiful house, surrounded by everything I thought I wanted, and yet feeling more invisible than I ever had. The silence in the rooms was no longer peaceful. It was proof of how much I'd faded into the background of my own life. My husband had been away on another business trip. They used to be short, a few days. A week at most, but lately they stretched longer. Weeks blurred into months, and when he did come home, it wasn't with warmth or excitement. It was with duty, routine. He'd ask about groceries, the dog, the neighborhood. But never about me, never about how I was really doing. He looked through me like I was just another fixture in the house, not a woman, not his wife. I kept myself busy. I cooked, I cleaned, I smiled at the neighbors. I answered messages in our family group chats. On the outside, I played the part, but inside, something had gone quiet. Not dead, not entirely, but something close. I'd lie awake at night staring at the ceiling, wondering if this was all life would be now, a long stretch of being unseen. So when he told me he'd be gone again, this time nearly a month, I nodded. I didn't protest. I never did. I had grown used to swallowing my silence like medicine. I told myself it was normal, that this was marriage, that not all loves stay loud. I believed it until I didn't. A week after he left, my stepson Aiden came home from college for spring break. 22, tall, quiet. He had always been respectful, polite. We had a bond that was steady and distant. I had raised him since he was in middle school. I never tried to replace his mother. I just tried to be there, and for years that was enough. But something was different this time. Not in a way that was wrong, not at first, just different. His eyes lingered longer than before. His compliments felt warmer. "You look beautiful today," he said one morning as I poured my coffee. His voice didn't hold the awkward edge of a boy. It was soft, certain, a man's voice. I laughed it off, but my heart didn't. We started spending more time together. Coincidence, mostly, or so I told myself. He'd come into the kitchen while I was cooking, offer to help with groceries, sit beside me on the couch at night. We'd watch old movies or talk about school, life, anything really. There was a comfort in his presence, something quiet but magnetic. I told myself it was harmless, but I felt it. Every time his hand brushed against mine, every time he stood a little too close, every time I found myself looking forward to seeing him walk into the room. I told myself it was just attention, just loneliness, but it was more. One evening, we sat on the porch as the sun dipped below the trees. The air was thick with spring and silence. He looked at me, not like a boy looks at a mother figure, but like a man seeing a woman he couldn't quite stay away from. "You're stronger than anyone gives you credit for," he said. His voice was low, steady. It hit something in me I'd forgotten existed. I didn't know what to say. No one had spoken to me like that in years, not my husband, not anyone. It was as if he saw past the roles, the years, the boundaries. As if he saw me. That night I couldn't sleep. I replayed every word, every glance, every moment. I told myself I was reading too much into it, that I was imagining things, but I knew I wasn't. Something had shifted. In me, in him, in us, and I was terrified. The house was quiet on Thursday evening. Rain had started to fall, steady and hard. The power went out suddenly, like the universe had decided to dim everything but the truth. I lit a few candles, trying to distract myself, trying not to feel the weight of what was building. Aiden came into the room holding 2 glasses of wine. "Thought you could use this," he said with a soft smile. I hesitated, then took the glass. His fingers grazed mine. We sat in silence, the rain tapping against the windows. The flicker of candlelight threw shadows across the room. It felt like a world outside time. One where rules didn't matter, only presence, only truth. He spoke first. He told me he'd been feeling lost lately, how being home made him feel grounded, how he appreciated the warmth I brought into the house. He looked at me with eyes that held no judgment, only honesty. "You don't even realize how incredible you are, do you?" I shook my head slightly, unsure how to answer. I wasn't used to being seen that way. "Not anymore. You deserve to feel alive," he said, his voice like something I hadn't heard in so long it almost hurt. "You deserve someone who sees you." My heart thudded against my ribs. I wanted to tell him to stop, that it wasn't appropriate, that it was a mistake, but I didn't. Instead, I let the words soak into me like sunlight after a long winter. I whispered that sometimes I felt like I was fading, like no one saw me anymore. And it was the most honest thing I'd said in years. He reached for my hand, held it gently. I didn't pull away. His touch wasn't bold. It was reverent, tender, like he was trying to gather all the broken pieces without shattering anything further. I looked into his eyes and saw no danger, only understanding. I should have moved. I should have stopped what came next, but I didn't. He leaned in slowly. Our lips touched, soft and unsure. It wasn't wild. It wasn't lust. It was something deeper, sadder, more fragile. It was a kiss born not from impulse, but from years of longing. When it ended, neither of us spoke. I stood and whispered that I was going to bed. I left him there, sitting in the candlelight, but sleep never came, only the weight of what we had done. I stared at the ceiling again, but this time my thoughts weren't hollow. They were heavy. I had crossed a line. Not just with him, with myself. I had betrayed more than a vow. I had betrayed the version of me that once believed she would never let this happen, and yet I didn't feel regret. I felt something else. Something sharper, like being awake after a long dream. The next morning, I moved through the kitchen like nothing had changed, but everything had. Aiden entered casually, like it was just another day. But I could feel the shift in him too. There was something in his body language, his tone, that told me he remembered every second. So did I. We didn't speak of the kiss. We didn't have to. It hung in the air between us like an unsaid confession. I told myself it was just a moment, just loneliness. But when his hand brushed against mine again, I didn't move. And when he stood behind me to reach for a bowl, and I felt his breath on my neck, I didn't flinch. Shame curled in my chest, but it was tangled with something else, something I couldn't push away. He stayed home more after that, skipped outings with friends, made excuses to be near me. We'd talk late into the night. About my past, about his dreams, about the things I had buried to survive a marriage that had forgotten me. I told him we had to stop, that it couldn't happen again, that it was dangerous, reckless. He nodded. Apologized, said he understood. But the next time we were alone, he leaned in close and whispered that he couldn't stop thinking about me, that I deserved more than to be invisible, that I deserved to be wanted. And his words broke something inside me that had already been cracked for years. One night, he touched my face and said, "You don't have to keep pretending you're not alone just to feel safe." I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The way I looked at him said everything. I let myself fall, not fast, not without hesitation, but with a kind of quiet surrender I hadn't allowed myself in decades. What followed wasn't planned. It wasn't explosive. It was inevitable. He kissed me again, and I let him. He touched me like he was trying to remember every part of me, like every scar and every silence mattered. I gave in because part of me had already decided it was better to feel something wrong than nothing at all. I told myself I was still in control, that I could walk away, that it was temporary, but I knew better. I had already crossed the point of return, and soon his break was ending. He started packing, folding clothes, making calls, preparing to go back to the life he had paused. I watched in silence, my heart folding itself into smaller pieces. He was leaving, and he'd take this version of me with him, the one who had come alive for the first time in years. The night before he left, he came to me with hesitation in his eyes. For the first time, he looked uncertain. He didn't touch me, didn't kiss me, just stood there, quiet. "I don't regret any of it," he said. "But I don't want to ruin your life." I tried to respond, but my voice failed me. I nodded, feeling my throat tighten. The next morning, he left without ceremony. No promises, no final embrace, just silence. And the house returned to stillness, but it wasn't the same. It had changed. I had changed. My husband came home days later. He kissed my cheek, talked about clients and deals, poured wine, laughed at his own jokes. He didn't notice the way I avoided his eyes, didn't see how I had become hollow in a different way, not from being empty, but from being full of something I couldn't keep. I had given myself to someone else, not just physically, emotionally, entirely, and it showed in the way I no longer reached for him, in the way I sat at dinner like a ghost. Aiden texted once, just 4 words, "Take care of yourself." I stared at it for hours, then deleted it. We both knew it couldn't continue, and yet I also knew I could never go back to what I was before. The marriage remained, the house stood, the days moved forward, but I lived beside a man who thought everything was still fine. While I carried a truth I couldn't share, and maybe that's the real punishment, not being caught, but having to live with the memory of a love you were never meant to feel. I learned something through it all. Love without attention is just routine, and attention without love is just temptation, and somewhere between the two, I lost a version of myself I'll never get back. Thank you for listening to my story. It wasn't easy to share, not because of shame, but because once something this personal is spoken aloud, it becomes real in a new way. What happened between Aiden and me didn't come from desire alone. It came from silence, from years of being unseen, from a marriage where I forgot what it felt like to matter. I'm not proud of every choice, but I'm also not sorry for remembering what it feels like to be alive. Life doesn't always break us with loud crashes. Sometimes it fades us slowly, until one moment shakes us awake. For me, that moment came in the most unexpected way, from someone I never imagined would see me. But now that I've been seen, I can't go back to being invisible. Thank you for being here, for witnessing this truth with me. Take care of your heart. It remembers everything, especially what you try to forget.